Hello. Welcome to another Mystery Grape Monday. It is like exam week, finals week back in uni. Noelle will be joining me here shortly, and we'll go through another grape. For those of you that are new to the process here, what we do is we have a set of clues. This time I will be giving it to Noelle, and let me get her going right there. And she knows what it is. Spoiler alert. We kind of talked and plotted and planned this. But as I'm giving the clues to Noelle, she will be talking about kind of her thought process with the clues. And so, whoops, let me fix my little camera here. So she'll be talking about her thought process with the clues. And to kind of get an idea for you as you're sitting there doing a blind tasting exam, the type of things that we would encourage you to think about when you're tasting these wines. And for those of you that are joining us live, feel free to kind of talk along with us, if you have any guesses. Our one rule, though, is try not to really think about a grape in the beginning. Think about more the climate influences, think more about the winemaking influences, and then don't think about grape till the very, very end.
It's hard. It's tough to do.
Yes, it's so hard to do, especially in
it
exam.
Is like you have to train your brain to not do that. So yeah.
But my exam in May, the first flight was the grape flight, and I had a New Zealand Sauv Blanc, and so as soon as you hit that, you're just like, ah! But, you have to try.
You do. It's hard.
Spoiler alert, our wine tonight is not a New Zealand Sauv Blanc, though.
So. I hope they would have figured that out. But yes. But this is a tough one. I think it's, I mistook the variety for something else on my exam, and I think you've struggled with something else. So I'm glad we're going over this one. So
most definitely. So are you ready?
I am.
All right, here we go. Clue number 1, red and black plums. And think about the condition of it. I would say they're fresh red and black plums. Clue 2, blackberry. And also I would say fresh as opposed to dried blackberries, or you think of blackberries that you get like in the can, like you're making blackberry pie. When I say fresh, I want you thinking of fresh blackberries you either picked right from the bush or at least got at a good grocery store or farmer's market.
Okay.
Third clue is one that I don't necessarily recommend putting down on your exam because it's not an SAT approved term, but I want to see what Noelle thinks about this one. Christmas fruitcake. You put your nose in a glass and it makes you think of Christmas fruitcake. So what are some SAT terms that image conjures for you?
Let's see. So it obviously makes me think of my grandma, which was the only woman on earth that I would ever eat a Christmas fruitcake for. But, what is it made of? So it's made of like raisins, and it's got some sweeter spices in it, maybe like cinnamon, maybe some cloves, figs.
Yeah, figs.
Kind of that, not dried like a passamento type of fruit, but it's kind of got the dried, maybe prune, although probably wouldn't put prune in a fruit cake. But yeah, somebody said warm spices.
Bingo.
Perfect.
That's a great one. Warm spices.
So I think if you, put something like fruit cake, put in parentheses a little bit more specific. Yeah. Those descriptors. What do you mean by Christmas fruitcake? What is included in that? But so your other descriptors, you're fresh and you're ripe. So to me, that's kind of like a nice in between. You're not saying tart fruit, which makes me think cool climate. You're not saying jammy or baked, which makes me think hot. So I think we're somewhere kind of moderate. And your red and black fruit, that also sticks out to me because you're not focused maybe on one or the other. Some varieties definitely just show one or the other, and there's a handful that can show both depending on where they're grown or winemaking. So that's kind of where my head is at. Christmas fruitcake is very interesting though, and we'll talk about that a little bit more because that's an interesting descriptor.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Clue number 4, vanilla. And I'd say we're more vanilla bean versus vanilla extract.
Okay.
And then clue 5, chocolate.
Chocolate and vanilla. Okay. So the vanilla bean is going to be more of a quality. It's not going to be your faux vanilla extract that we had several episodes ago in our mass-produced Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And chocolate. So this is indicating some oak. And chocolate I don't get in a lot of these reds, but there are some handfuls, especially from a certain area, that I do tend to get some chocolate with. So to me, this is indicating it's been aged in some percentage, or typically new oak, and it's going to be higher quality because of the, like you said, the vanilla bean versus the what do you call that?
Oh, the extract?
Yes. Yeah.
The Cormick.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So, okay. So we're talking kind of moderate climate, perhaps fruit that can show, or grape that can show red and black fruits, and then typically aged in oak, percentage new, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Chocolate is one that I note that there's two grapes that I tend to get it most on, and that's where my Achilles heel comes with separating those two grapes with that. So, I mean, there's more grapes that can come, but there's two in particular that hits my fun spot. And so it's just, all right, now let's get to the structure clues. Just to restate the flavor aroma clues: red and black plum, fresh; blackberries, fresh; Christmas fruitcake, vanilla bean, and chocolate. Okay. So now on to the structure clue. So this one, if you got a young example, it would be more in that kind of medium, possibly deep ruby. However, when I look back at some of the past exam wines, this particular wine was featured once previously on the exam, and they actually did a 7-year aged example, which surprised me a bit, because you got to think like logistics. They're doing the exam. They need the same wine, same vintage in sites across the globe. And so that's a quantity that they need to procure, and it's easier to do with a younger vintage versus an aged. So, but this one was an age example. So this is one that you could skip medium garnet. So I just want you to kind of keep that in mind. Medium garnet here. This is a wine that definitely features garnet often with a little bit of age. Okay. Pronounced intensity, dry, medium plus to high acid, medium plus to high, ripe, smooth tannins. And it's a term, another term that's not an SAT approved term, but I often describe this very polished tannins. Okay. Full body, high alcohol.
Okay. So going back to the flavors and combining that with the structure, and if we're working on our funneling technique, where you kind of come up with your suspects, they come into the room before you pick which one it is. I kind of have 3 suspects coming in my room right now. And unfortunately, I think I often pick the wrong one. But dang it, good thing I'm not a good eyewitness. But the acidity, the higher, and your description of the tannins, that kind of eliminates for me, well, definitely the description of the tannins and the chocolate and the new oak, that kind of eliminates Italy for me, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, I don't usually get the vanilla and the chocolate with Italian stuff, so I've moved that out. I'm honing in. Can I say? No, I'm not going to say yet.
Well, actually, you probably could. I mean, you've got 3 suspects, and we went through all the clues. So, you got your aroma flavor clues, you got your structure clues.
Yeah, any suspects before I blurt out mine. But yeah, I'm still sticking with my moderate climate. I'm sticking with a variety that shows oak well because of that vanilla and chocolate. The higher elevated acidity combined with a higher alcohol is a little bit perplexing to me, because I think of Grenache being high alcohol, grown in a warm climate, and but I'm eliminating that because of higher acidity. Grenache doesn't have that. And Grenache doesn't have the black fruit. So I am more in a Bordeaux type of variety. That's where I'm at. And I have 3 suspects marching in the room that are all from Bordeaux. Okay. And
come on in.
Come on in, guys. They are Merlot, they are Cab Sauv, and they are Malbec. Yeah. yeah, they're the dirty trio or whatever, the troublesome trio.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
that's
there's
where my
different
mind,
regions. Yeah, different regions that those varieties are grown in that you could be tested on.
totally. So that would be where my mind would be going. So how would we go about eliminating, if we're starting out with our funnel of those three, let's talk about how maybe we would get to one versus the other.
Yeah. So we have anybody that's watching, you're welcome to kind of have your guesses there. I'll go through all the clues once more with that. Noelle's kind of has her suspects, and it is one of those three, and then we can narrow down the region too from that. Clues again: red and black plums, fresh; blackberries, fresh; Christmas fruitcake; vanilla bean; chocolate; medium to deep ruby when young, medium garnet with some age; pronounced intensity; dry; medium plus to high acid; medium plus to high ripe smooth tannins; full body; high alcohol. So we have one thought with Merlot from Napa with that. If anybody else has some other thoughts with that. Yeah.
So if I was writing my note, and that was what I had, that was were my descriptors, and I was writing my, conclusion, I think I would eliminate, yes, somebody just said it, Maria. I would eliminate cab because of the lack of those green notes. No pyrazines were mentioned. And also the texture of those tannins that you mentioned, those speak to me about the other two varieties more so than cab. Cab has much more aggressive structure to me than Malbec or Merlot.
Yeah.
Carneros Merlot, I've never had one, but I am super intrigued by that actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of nice freshness from that. Definitely some good ones there. Also, I love Merlot too from like the Oak Knoll district on that.
Oh, I need to give Merlot more of a chance. I'm married to Washington Merlot, but I need to maybe.
Washington Merlot is evil to blind taste on. With that,
it is. It's really delicious.
It's so
though.
evil.
Really
it's so
is.
cab-like.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, so I mean, out of my suspects, I think I would send cab out of the room because of the lack of the pyrazines, and cab I would expect to be more structured.
Okay.
Thoughts on that? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I think that's kind of reasonable. Okay. Now I'll play a little devil's advocate and argue for cab to a degree, because the tannins can still be high. And I often don't think of Merlot, especially if I'm going to like Napa, as having high tannins. We were medium plus to high on that. And, Napas, they tend to be a little bit more softer with that. I mean, I would say distinctly medium plus is when I think of Napa Merlot. So it's not, wimpy at all, but it doesn't have, the punch that I would associate with necessarily Merlot. Carneros potentially could be. I think a Carneros Merlot would be fairly evil too for an exam. Usually they do more the blended Napa, like Duckhorn's a favorite. Previously they did Schaefer, Stag's Leap Merlot, which heck, I would love to have been a student there. Pour me Schaefer for an exam.
Okay. Yeah, that would too.
So the high tannins, that one that in the higher acid. So that would still, I would still keep cab in my funnel for a little bit. The lack of pyrazines though is a very, very strong clue. Also lack of, I would say even more like tobacco notes that kind of pop out even with riper cabs. Merlot and Malbec doesn't show much pyrazines. Out of all the Bordeaux varieties, it's probably the least amount of pyrazines, but I think it's partly because when you think of where Malbec comes from, warm climate, Mendoza, high UV intensity, they get it right with that. And also Malbec's more medium ripening, like Merlot is, versus Cab late ripening. So Cab's more likely in that pyrazine camp. Merlot can show some pyrazines, but it's not the same as Cab. When I think about Merlot, it's more that herbal. I know in Guild Somm they like to talk about bay leaf a lot. versus, you know, the green bell pepper and jalapeno of Cab. So I always think of it as like the difference with, like, if you're doing Merlot, it's you're making a chili, the green herbs, bay leaf that you, or excuse me, with Merlot, you're making a stew, you know, the bay leaf, the herbs that you would put into a stew versus making a chili. And that's like Cab with the jalapeno and green bell peppers.
That's
so
good
that's
analogy.
kind of,
I always love your food analogies. This is happening right before lunch. It makes me very hungry.
well, yes, I do associate food a lot with my wine studies. I mean, come on, guys, I'm a big girl. I'm going to think about food. Christmas fruitcake.
No, it's a great way to remember it. It's a super great way to remember it. Yeah.
There is, again, my point is Merlot can show some pyrazines, and I don't have it, you know, in the clues here. If I was, you know, doing, you know, but you have to keep that in mind, like particularly like if you have like a Bordeaux Superior, a basic AOC Bordeaux, those grapes are not going to always be perfectly ripe. So you can see some of that bay leaf, some of that herbal notes. So that's the kind of that I wanted to think about, is some of those inexpensive Merlot. And if you go to Chile, they have some grain notes there that pop out. So the idea with, you know, Cab not having, you know, with grain notes. So that's just the one, kind of my devil's advocate a little bit.
Totally fair. And let's be honest. I mean, if you are getting your funnel down and you call Merlot over Cab, you're still gonna do pretty darn well on that wine, because they have a lot of similarities. And again, just because you zigged instead of zagged, you'll probably be okay at the end of that. I called a Napa Cab a Napa Merlot on my exam, and I did absolutely fine on that wine. So don't panic if you make that last call incorrectly. Just don't call this a Sauv Blanc. I mean, like you said at the beginning. Yeah. Okay. So let's assess Malbec. Why would this not be Malbec? You didn't mention any floral aromas in your descriptor, and that's pretty common of Malbec. For me, I expect Malbec to be a little bit more purple in color. The Christmas fruitcake. You know, that's but Malbec can have those the black fruits, the ripe, the acidity, all those things you said. So what would is Malbec here? Because Cab and Merlot were my two evil twins. I'm suspecting that Malbec and Merlot are your. Okay.
So again, devil's advocate going towards Malbec. I pick up chocolate. I think Malbec quite a bit.
Okay.
Chocolate and Malbec does just hit me. But you're right. I would need to think about a little bit more the lack of floral notes. Merlot can have some floral notes, you know, particularly in areas of Bordeaux, but Malbec tends to have a little bit more. And when you think about it and think about the why, I mean, think about the altitude, the high elevation, the Zonda wind. You know, there's a lot of diurnal influences in like Mendoza, where you usually would get a Malbec. You know, Cahors is another option, which Cahors is another thing that would be evil in a blind tasting. But thankfully, most examiners aren't evil, so they're more likely to give you a Malbec from Mendoza. But those combinations with the diurnals from the altitude and the wind, those bring out lovely, lovely floral notes with Malbec. I mean, stick your nose in a bouquet of violets, and that's a lot of goodness with Malbec. I also think, though, between Malbec, like in Merlot, there's more plumminess with Merlot, while Malbec is a little bit more berrylicious with that. The floral notes, the more berrylicious. And this wine here in our clues, we have both plums and as well as blackberries, but I also get blueberries with Malbec as well, and boysenberries. I mean, like, I call them the IHOP syrup berries. You know, even though it's like, Malbec's nothing like IHOP syrup, but you think of all those different berry syrups you have. It's like you could just go berry, berry, berry in your tasting note on Malbec.
And Christmas fruitcake, I mean, you don't really get the raisins and those spices with the Malbec, or at least I have not had one that has had that. So the chocolate, yes, totally with you on the chocolate between Merlot and Malbec, but that Christmas fruitcake.
So if we eliminate Malbec, and I still feel like Cab could be a still good call. So let's go back then to Cab and Merlot with that on it. What ultimately, if we're happen to flip a coin between the two, what would we fall back on, and what is your coin flip going to be then?
My coin flip would be to Merlot, based on, as you mentioned, the lack of pyrazine don't hang your hat on that, but that's one piece of evidence. For me, the mouthfeel of the tannins, the smoothness, the ripeness, again, cab, I just kind of feel like it's just like in my mouth sometimes. It's much more structured. And this is a very high quality wine, by the way. We haven't really discussed quality, but there is a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity. It's well balanced. It's got some nice warming sensation. The alcohol is not out of whack. But it has, a lot of people say that cab has that hollow mid palate, and Merlot fills that in. And this is just it's plush in the mouth. So I am definitely focusing more on how it feels in my mouth as opposed to flavors, differentiating the two between cab and Merlot. That's how I would go about it. How would you attack this?
I think you nailed it. When you're deciding between the two, you have to come back to the tannins. You know, Merlot can have high tannins, especially in areas, you know, like Bordeaux, you can get higher tannins, a little bit cooler climate there. But the tannins are always going to be different. Merlot tannins are a little softer with that. And more broad. You know, I think of cab, you know, cab's, the structure of cab sings through from first sip to last sip. And cab has corners, Merlot meanders. So you think about how those different tannins and that structure feels in your mouth. You know, cab's going to have this, you know, corners with that. Also, you think of the fruit profile too. You know, black currants have a bite to it. Plums, broader. You can kind of associate that. And so how is that wine feeling in your mouth? Does it feel more broad, or does it feel like it has more corners to it?
This is just broad. It's plush. It's velvety. Like that's how I would describe my, that's how I describe it.
So where it's from, we see a lot of votes for different areas from Napa, which would totally be a really, really great call here on that. Write a note describing that. You're getting a lot of points.
That's where we're at.
We did go to Pomerol, which is the most Napa-like of Bordeaux Merlots on it. That one, probably the big tip on this one, probably versus a Napa one, maybe a Napa one might be a little younger with that. This one here, 2014, 2015, you were mentioning the color already. It's showing garnet.
Yeah, mine's tending to garnet a bit. I mean, it's showing a little bit age.
Yeah, I mean, Napa Merlots often, sometimes even have a slight purple sometimes if they get a long hang time to it. Definitely more that deeper color. The last time Merlot was featured as a grape flight in 2017, they did the Schaefer Merlot from Napa. They did a 2010 Pomerol, so Pomerol with age, and then they did a Chilean Merlot. So you think about how somebody would be parsing between those. You know, the Chilean Merlot probably had a little bit of green to it. The Napa one, very, very plush, probably darker colors, riper, sweeter fruit. The one thing that may have slid you a little bit from the tasting notes that we gave you to Pomerol is probably that Christmas fruitcake. Because it's a savory dessert, Christmas fruitcake. It's not just all sweet on it. That's why children often don't like Christmas fruitcake. It's not as sweet enough.
Adults don't either.
Okay. I don't mind.
Sorry, Grandma. Yeah. But that's a totally good descriptor. That is, I mean, I am getting that. And when you Pomerol, mine is mostly Merlot. It's 84% Merlot. So it's also important when you're trying to differentiate Merlot and to get one that has obviously mostly Merlot. And your Napa Merlot can maybe have 25% cab. So that's gonna change the
quite a bit. Yeah. One other thing about tannins, just to talk about that. There was something that in our little briefing as we were kind of coming together that you posted from Wine Scholar Guild that you mentioned that just rocked my world with how the tannins were described. So actually, if you're willing to describe it, I want to geek out on that because I think it's awesome.
With the chocolate tannins?
Chocolate tannins. Yes. Yeah. Describe, and another term that is not SAT approved, but think about this. Think about the tannins of Merlot and think about chocolate. So after I read that, I went and grabbed some chocolate. In the UK, just a shout out, just not wine related, but in the UK, if you love chocolate, Cocoa Runners has it awesome monthly subscription where they send you like 4 craft bars every month. And in this month, I got this one. It's from Canada, a Quebecois chocolate, 80% from Peru. And you get a good piece of chocolate, like a good 80% chocolate, and just have it melt in your mouth. There is similarities, without a doubt, to Merlot. It will be a light bulb moment for you.
Interesting.
Especially compared to cab tannins. It does still remind me of Malbec, so that chocolate does screw me often with Malbec. As I get too much in the chocolate, I think Malbec sometimes. But compare this with that. I'm going to eat this.
Okay, but that is a great, and that is like a high quality chocolate. Do not go open your freaking Halloween candy and expect your tannins from your Reese's peanut butter cup to be the same as this very nice Pomerol.
Yeah, you can think of Hershey milk chocolate as like maybe like a Central Valley California Merlot, you know, kind of the cheaper ones. You know, a really good milk chocolate, like a nice Belgian milk chocolate would be your nice Napa Merlot. But go with that 80%, 75% dark for your like Bordeaux chocolate.
I like that analogy. Yeah, Pomerol is not your Hershey's.
And this actually brings us back to the finish. You know, you have that bitterness on the finish. When you think about a wine, every wine you taste in a blind tasting exam, do this one thing for me. Think about that last kiss that the wine gives you. Is it ending on, when you think about that finish, is it ending on fruit? Or is it ending on something more savory? Or maybe even more bitter, especially with our Italian wines? You know, obviously stereotypes are stereotypes, but in general, a lot of New World wines, like your Napa Merlot, that last kiss it leaves you with is going to be fruit. Yeah. You know, Americans, we love our fruit. And so it makes sense that producers make styles that fit that. In Europe, they tend to like more savory, bitter flavors. So it makes sense that a lot of old world style, that last kiss it leaves you with is something savory. Italians, they like their bitterness. That last kiss is often something bitter. So really, really focus on that. You know, you're writing the length of it and the quality of the finish on your note, but think about what it is leaving you with. And
this is savory. This is hands down savory. It's Christmas fruitcake all day long. But I actually like it.
Thank Grandma.
I actually like it. So, and this was aged in 50% new oak. I don't know if I said that, but when you are buying your Merlot that you want, like a Pomerol, or haven't they had Centimillion on quite a bit? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Though, truth be told, if you look at the past exams and tasting wines that they do, they often favor left bank Bordeaux much, much more than right bank on that. Now, again, just because they haven't done it in the past doesn't mean they can't do it this week and the next exam. Nobody knows what the examiners are going to do. They can do whatever they want. Yes. But I'll tell you, one wine that they absolutely love featuring, they featured it like 4 times. So if you want to get a good Bordeaux, go over to the left bank, Saint Estèphe, Collabore. They featured it 4 times with that, including actually just a little recently. Where was that last time? You were 2020. I was gonna say October 2019. Was the last time they featured it. But then they featured it in January 2019, January 2017, June 2014. They love that wine. Maybe that producer sits on the board of WSET. I don't know with that. But
interesting.
And it's delicious.
Maybe it just shows typicity or something. So okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
All right. I think we kind of wrap this up here. Do you want to let people know what we're going to be doing tomorrow and Wednesday?
Yes. So we've heard through the grapevine that some of you have wine exams coming up. And so we are doing a live tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time, which means 5 p.m. for London. There's exams throughout the week, but Amber and I are going to kind of talk about how did we maximize our last couple of days of study time. What did we do? What did we not do? So that'll be tomorrow. If you have any questions, send either of us a DM or ask in the comments here, because we know these last couple days can be stressful and overwhelming, and you're not sure if you should put the books away or start reviewing China, because you never know if China's going to come up. So that'll be tomorrow. And then Wednesday morning, we're also going to meet 9 a.m. my time, Pacific time, 5 p.m. British Standard Time. And we'll talk about very last minute tips, and then maybe day of, because I think day of tips is we'll go through what we did. And obviously it's not a one size fits all, but, you know, it worked for us, and maybe you don't need to congregate and compare notes with other students. That will only stress you out.
Yeah.
So,
but we're not going to do it live the day of, though. We're not Thursday, Friday. You know, we'll kind of do, I mean, I'll do Mystery Grape on Thursday, but for the most part, kind of a little bit of, and Find Me Friday. But for the most part, we do radio silence, because that really is the most respectful way to do for other students is stay off of social media. Don't talk about the exam. Don't stress people out. You know, just take a vacation from social media for the most part those days.
Yeah, and there's other exams. I mean, there's a fortified and sparkling. So we'll definitely share what we did for those exams as well, because you know, we know the beast kind of overwhelms things, but there's also
I think D2 business as well.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a whole slate.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
And I heard from a friend that they passed their paper with merit. I won't name names, but congratulations. You know who you are. So that's one more hurdle down. So okay, so hopefully we'll see some of you guys tomorrow. Again, if you have questions about how to spend these last couple of days of studying, we're here for you.
Yeah.
So,
take care.
Okay.